Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, May 24th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Notre Dame game is in 103 days, the game against Michigan in 187 days. We are about to head into one of the busy times in the college football recruiting calendar, June. That has not been always the most important period, but with the advent of official summer visits, coupled with camps, unofficial visits, it's turned into a time when a lot of decisions get made by top prospects around the nation. So, before we dive into that month of June, it seemed like the perfect time to have on Alex Gleitman. He just dropped the latest edition of his Stock Up, Stock Down look at the recruiting class and offense. Alex, thanks for being here.
Yeah, Tom, always a pleasure. Get an exciting time of year. Recruiting camps just around the corner. Next week we'll be starting June camps at Ohio State and around the country. So recruiting's just heating up. So this is like as Bill Green likes to say, we're just getting out of the layup line, and the game's really just about to start here.
All right, now, so before we get to that stock up, stock down portion of the show, you had a completely separate report late last week or early week over the weekend that I really want to start with, because when you're talking offense, you have to start with quarterback. So that is a position where there really isn't a clear-cut front-runner to be the Buckeyes signee in 2023. Now, that's not super unusual for this time of the cycle, but you just reported on a couple of names who Ohio State fans should know, at least as sort of people of interest for the quarterback room. So who are they?
Yeah, I mean, one I didn't even mention that you have to keep an eye on is Austin Novosad out of Dripping Springs in Texas. He's committed to Baylor right now. He's a 4-star kid, a top, let's call it 250 to 300 kid, depending on like what site you look at. But Austin tells me he's going to be camping. I think it's June 1st, so next week. So he's one, but the other two that I mentioned are a little bit more under the radar than Austin is, being a 4-star. So one is 3-star Brock Glenn out of the Memphis, Tennessee area. He goes to Lasan Collegiate School. He just qualified and made the Elite 11 finals after competing at a regional. So I kind of think he's about to blow up a little bit. I mean, he's got 30 offers: TCU, Auburn, Mississippi State, Virginia, Cincinnati. There's a few others in there. I mean, Kentucky, Minnesota, Michigan State, Oklahoma State, Pittsburgh. So, Virginia Tech's in there too. So it's not like he doesn't have pretty solid Power 5 offers. I just think that this is a kid who hasn't really been looked at by maybe the Ohio States and, even like Penn States, Michigans, things like that. Like you're missing those kind of like more traditional blue bloods, I would say, when it comes to football on his list. And he's a kid that I think Ohio State, I know they've been in touch with, and I think that they're going to be looking at closely. I'm sure they're going to try to get into camp. He's uncommitted right now. So that's someone that I would look out for as being on the board and someone who might impress them. And then the other kid is Jax Leatherwood, who honestly, I'm a little surprised at this one. I actually got a chance to see him for a couple days, worked out last December, so not too long ago, about five months back. In Dallas, and at a signing day event, he was there as pretty much the lone underclassman, and I got to see him throw the ball around a little bit. He's a big kid. I mean, he's a legitimate like 6'6", long, lean. He's got a really strong arm. I think he's won 2 state championships in California. He's from San Diego, though. That's not really a very highly recruited area when you think about California. So a little bit under the radar. I remember last year I was with a bunch of scouts while we were watching him, and they thought he was a Power 5 kid. I mean, not necessarily Ohio State. Maybe you think Pac-12, maybe like an Oregon State type of recruit. I think was like one of the schools that they thought should be looking at him. But he's committed to Nevada. He also has a San Diego State offer. So you're looking at Mountain West type of offers. But Ohio State, Corey Dennis has been in touch. He's talked to Ryan Day multiple times on the phone. Even though he's committed to Nevada, I think the plan is for him to come out and throw for them in Columbus, and that doesn't mean he's going to get an offer, but it's really interesting, as maybe the same way. I mean, a little bit different. Olave was probably a little higher ranked than Jax, who 24/7 has as the 34th overall quarterback in the country. But Ryan Day didn't go out to see Chris Olave. He went out to see Jack Tuttle throw the football. So maybe this is a case where they found kind of a diamond in the rough out in that San Diego area again. But we'll see when he comes to camp and throws the football around. But those are 3 names I would definitely watch on the board. And, obviously there's others they're going to look, the Dante Moores of the world, maybe some other guys that they've been on that that they might try to flip later in the cycle. So we'll see how things go.
All right, moving on to running back, the Buckeyes already have Mark Fletcher in the class, and for a long time it sounded like Richard Young might be the guy who joined him in the class, but now things might be trending in a different direction. So what is the latest that you're hearing on Richard Young, and then who else is looking like they might be a possible candidate to end up in the class?
Yeah, I'm not ready to give up on Richard Young yet. I know that Andrew Ivins, who by the way I always had a great relationship when I worked with him at 24/7. I think he does a tremendous job in this newer role over the last couple years as that kind of Florida insider. But personally for me, I think maybe Richard's like. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just being straight up about that. He told Andrew like the Ohio State official wasn't 1,000%, and he might go. I think it was maybe to Oregon instead. I think that might just be generating a little bit of smoke and excitement. Everyone's been saying, "Oh, it's Ohio State and Alabama. It's Ohio State and Alabama." And I think maybe going into visits, he might just want to keep people on their toes a little bit. Mark and Kevin were just down there, and they didn't really get a hint that Ohio State was out. I mean, Mark wrote. I mean, anyone who's a member on our board, Mark pretty adamant that he still felt it was Ohio State and Alabama, and I haven't heard anything like I don't think Ohio State certainly doesn't think that they're out of this one. He talks to Tony Alford all the time, so I still think Ohio State has a great chance there. I mean, if he doesn't take the visit, obviously that one's done, but I do think Ohio State's in it, so I wouldn't say that Richard Young is definitely off the board or trending down necessarily. I'd wait and see, but I think right now the only elite guy that they could end up with that I see right now is Justice Haynes out of Blessed Trinity Catholic in Roswell, Georgia. That's the same high school they got Steel Chambers out of a few years back. Really good running back. He's been high on the board for a while. He's had Ohio State high on his list for a while. Buckeyes might be number 2 behind Georgia. I think the home state Bulldogs might be number 1, but he's a tremendous baseball player. I think he's a lefty pitcher, throws in the mid-90s, and so the MLB draft or maybe even playing college baseball could be hurdles to kind of have to leap over. But outside of Justice Haynes, who I do expect to take an official visit to Ohio State, I'm not really seeing anyone else that I think is a candidate to end up in this class right now. I think there's a possibility they could call it a day with Mark Fletcher, and then next year have on your roster you got Travion Henderson, maybe Mayan Williams, Evan Pryor, Dallin Hayden, who everyone seems to kind of forget about a little bit, and Mark Fletcher. And I think that's, even if Mayan Williams ends up going pro or going somewhere else to play for a year, I still think that room of Henderson, Pryor, Hayden, and Fletcher would be a really strong room. And you don't absolutely need a second back in this class if you can't get one that you feel is up to snuff.
Yeah, that they're in a position that's a little bit of a luxury position where a second great guy would be fantastic, but yeah, if you have the one guy, you definitely don't need to reach. Another position where they definitely do not need to reach is wide receiver. Brian Hartline just kind of brings in 3 or 4 of the best guys in the country every single year, and that's just, he makes it look very easy. They already have one guy locked in for the class. Maybe just a matter of time with another 2, maybe 3. I mean, what's the latest for the wideouts?
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to take 4, just because there's so many options on the table. I think Noah Rogers, I feel really good about him out of North Carolina. I think Brandon Innes out of South Florida, I feel really good about him. I still probably, gun to my head today, have Carnell Tate in the class, but that one is trending down from where it was, even a few months back. I think Tennessee... Look, I mean, it's legal. I think it's out there. NIL is definitely playing a factor here. They didn't get Nico Imovleva or however you pronounce it. I apologize if that was incorrect. Out of California for nothing. I mean, there's the rumors of the $8 million NIL deal and things along those lines. I don't know exactly what's potentially being offered to Carnell Tate or whatever, but again, it's all legal right now within the confines of the rules. I know the NCAA just changed things up a little bit, but if he wants to go and take advantage of those opportunities, I can't hate him for it. I mean, it's opportunity to guarantee yourself and your family to be a millionaire, multimillionaire potentially. But I do think the relationship with Hartline is real. I think he loves Ohio State. I think if he's just picking purely forget NIL or whatever, it's definitely Ohio State. And so I'm going to stick with Ohio State, but I do think that there is possibility should Carnell Tate go elsewhere. Jalen Hale from Texas speaks very highly of Ohio State. I probably should check in on him and when an official visit might be, because I do think that one could be coming. I know that they're going to get an official visit from Rico Flores in June before a commitment in early July, and I think that's if they shifted their attention there and they really wanted to focus on Rico Flores, I think that's a guy that they can absolutely get in this class. I mean, there's a few other guys on the board, but I think that they'll probably get 4 out of the names we just mentioned: Innis, Rogers, and then either Tate, Hale, Flores, one of those. There's a few other guys that they could look at, but I feel pretty good. I'm not worried about Brian Hartline closing. Let's just say that.
Yeah, those classes are, it's like, well, that's a bunch of different combinations, and all of them are very good, maybe slightly better than very good, but yeah, there's not a bad combination on that board, it sounds like. So, sounds like a typical Brian Hartline class. How about that? A little bit like running back, they already have 1 tight end committed, and then there was a national target who seemed like he might be trending towards Ohio State and potentially being the second one in the class as of about a month ago. But what is the latest with Walker Lyons?
Yeah, I thought coming out of the spring game visit that Ohio State would be in a little bit of a better spot than they are right now. I think he was really excited coming off that visit and felt like a little bit of renewed interest in Ohio State. But I was told coming into the trip that it was going to be really hard to pull him from the West Coast. He's also, Church of Latter-day Saints, like Mormon faith and religion, and that's going to play a big factor in this. And Utah and BYU are big players, and he's from Folsom, California, which is, I think, San Diego area. USC and Stanford are in the mix, and all 4 of those schools, I believe, Walker said, are going to be getting official visits. And then Ohio State and Alabama, one of them may get an official visit, and it may not even be this summer. It might be after he commits, just to kind of dot his I's and cross his T's type of thing, which tells me it's probably not going to happen. And so I think Ohio State, like, I'd be very shocked if this one happens. And, looking at the other tight ends, could they pull a surprise or something like that? Sure. But just seems like it's going to be kind of like the last few years where you thought that they wanted 2 tight ends. Their intent was to take 2 tight ends, but they're not going to reach for someone just to take a second tight end. So my prediction as of today would be that Ty Lockwood's going to be the only tight end in the class, but we'll see. Maybe they can convince Walker Lyons to visit this summer. I mean, even so, he's going to be going on a mission for next year, starting in January. So he'd miss what would be normally his freshman year of college, ultimately making him a 2024 prospect anyway. So it's not even like Ohio State would have him on the roster in 2023. I think to get a second tight end, maybe they go the JUCO route or the transfer route. Probably more so the portal, like they tried to do this year to build up a little bit of depth, maybe bring in some new talent. But I do think that they feel good about the guys that they have on the roster. So let's say Ty Lockwood, probably the only tight end in this class.
All right, now let's wrap things up with the line. They already have 3 guys committed. Those are all in-state prospects. It is a great stat Tony Gerderman dug up. The first time since 2009 that they have commits from the top 3 linemen in state. You just had one of their top tackle targets on your podcast, Around the Oval, and then over the weekend he dropped a top 5. It sounds like that one is definitely trending in the wrong direction for Ohio State, so let people know about that, and about maybe some other names that might end up in the class on the line.
Yeah, so Chase Besantis out of Don Bosco Prep in Ramsey, New Jersey, same school that Ohio State got Tyler Friday out of, Kevin Fetter a few years back, 24/7 composite, number 58 overall player, number 5 offensive tackle, top player in New Jersey. I would say even like back in, October, when they went to play Rutgers at Rutgers, Chase was at that game. I spoke to him after. Ohio State was the leader. Like, in my mind, like, Ohio State, if I had a crystal ball or Futurecast or whatever, I would have put one in for Ohio State at that point. And then the coaching changes happened, and Stud was out, and Justin Fry was in. And I don't think it's anything Justin Fry did wrong. I just think that actually the relationship was really strong with Stud. one of the few times I've said that. And as well as with Kennedy Cook, who was the GA, and I mean, he was moving on no matter what. His GA time was done, but the relationship was really strong with those guys. He had a great relationship with them, and I think it was almost like starting over to some extent, even though it was still Ohio State and Ryan Day. I think Chase felt like it was a starting over, and during that whole process of getting to know Justin Frye and whatever over the last few months, some other schools have really surged, and he's taken visits to schools he's never been at. And I think when I spoke to him last week to record the podcast, he knew 3 of his schools, but he wasn't 1,000% sure of the 4th and 5th. He was deciding between a few, which I'm not going to reveal who I top 3 are, but 4 and 5 are probably out if you really don't know for sure. I mean, you never know what happens, but at the time he basically told me he was leaning toward having Ohio State in that top 5, and obviously when he dropped it, 6 days later or so after we recorded, he decided that, and what he told me was, he just felt like the other schools he was talking to gave him a better opportunity to accomplish what he was looking to accomplish, or he felt more comfortable there, or whatever it is. But ultimately, yeah, he's out, and they're going to have to turn to some other guys. Samson Okunlola, you got to get a visit from him if you want him. He hasn't been on campus yet, but he's 5-star type player at offensive tackle out of Massachusetts, which obviously Ryan Day knows that area very well, as does Justin Frye, having coached at BC. And then Olas Alinen, Finnish native, playing at Loomis Chaffee in Connecticut. So 2 New England guys, ironically, I would say are their 2 best bets to get kind of like a quote-unquote elite offensive tackle to pair with Luke Montgomery, who's a top 50 player in his own right, and then Josh Padilla, top 150 type guy, and Austin Siereveld, who's a 4-star guy as well.
Yeah, I think everyone wants to act like the sky is falling if they miss on one offensive line commit, but they have 3 very solid guys already in the class, and it's only May, so there is plenty of stuff still to happen. Long time to go before National Signing Day and even early signing day, and a lot of that's going to start next week. As you said, one of those quarterback prospects going to be on campus on June 1st. That is 1 week from Wednesday, so we will be there as well, I would guess. To cover those, we are generally at least a couple of our folks at all of those camps to bring you lots of photos and videos and interviews and firsthand scouting reports and all that kind of fun stuff. I always look forward to camp season. Camp season's always kind of fun when you try and explain it to someone. It's like, why is that fun? And it's like, well, I don't know. It just kind of is. It's nice to be out in watching football again. Always kind of fun. So we'll have plenty of coverage of that. We'll have make sure you check out Alex's podcast Around the Oval. As he said, we said he had Chase Basantis on his last episode. He ends up talking to a lot of recruits and other folks who know their stuff as well. Has Bill Green on the show every once in a while, or Tony Gardeman, which is, I guess, the exception that proves the rule on people who know their stuff, but that's all right. And if you can't get enough of Tony, you can also find him on the Buckeye Weekly podcast. Tony and I just dropped an episode of that on Sunday. We'll have another one coming up a little later on this week, answering all of your listener questions. Kevin Noon does the Big Me Kickoff. Mark Givler and Bill the Bank Green do Gives in the Bank. You can find all of those great shows wherever you find this. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of them. You can subscribe right there and leave us a 5-star rating and review as well, which will help other folks find those shows. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.